Welcome to another Table Talk. I'm Israel Anderson. And today, as you can see, we're looking at Moses and Elijah, the two witnesses. And I get a lot of questions about this. So let's dive in and take a look at these two very interesting people. We're going to look at setting context. We're going to look at Yahweh's law, the two witnesses themselves, what happened during the mission when Jesus was here, and what is still to come. So, setting the context, we need to look at the contract for humanity. And I have a study coming on the contract for humanity, but we are going to look at it just a tiny little bit here today. So let's do that. In Revelation 5 through 11, we see a scroll with 7 seals. And this scroll is a contract with terms and conditions that must be met in order for it to execute. The contract is between Yahweh and the kingdom. The contract states that if one man can live his entire life and not break the law, he will fulfill the law, and all humans can go free. The kingdom had been looking for someone that could fulfill Yahweh's law without success, so Jesus incarnated as a man and did it himself. Jesus executes the contract that frees humanity from Yahweh. The contract fulfilled, the ownership of humanity has now transferred from Yahweh to Abba Father and Jesus. For more, see my study, The Contract for Humanity, which doesn't exist right now, but it will very soon. But I wanted to make sure that was in there because it will be around very soon. So let's look at these passages here. Revelation 5, 2-3. I saw a powerful angel proclaiming in a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to break its seals?" But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth, people that have died, were able to open the scroll or look into it. And then Revelation 5:9, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals because you were killed, and at the cost of your own blood you have purchased for God the people from every tribe, language, people, and nation. Revelation 11:15, this is where the ownership transfers over. The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Messiah, and he will reign forever and ever. Why did Jesus come? What is the purpose of Jesus coming? It is to fulfill Yahweh's law, to execute the contract for humanity. Jesus said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish these things, but to fulfill them." Matthew 5:17. This is important context. Some of you might be just seeing this in this perspective for the first time, because a lot of people like to use this passage against the things that I teach. But as you can see here, Jesus is making it plain. He came to fulfill the law, to fulfill the contract for humanity. And it's interesting when I saw this contract for humanity in Revelation chapters 5 through 11. Find anyone else who's even noticed that before? There's a contract in the Bible, and if that contract can be fulfilled, the ownership of humanity will change from one owner to another. And what has to happen to execute that contract? Someone needs to fulfill the law, needs to live a totally sinless life under Yahweh's law. That's what Jesus came to do. That's what he's here. If Jesus is going to fulfill Yahweh's law, to execute the contract, we will need to follow the requirements of the law to prove it has been fulfilled. How do we do that? Well, let's take a look at that. Thanks for being with me. I appreciate every single one of you. And, I appreciate all of my Founders Club members. You keep me going here. Founders Club is $25 a month. There's some perks with that. You get quarterly phone calls. We have a private Telegram group. They've been looking at this mind map for several days already. They get to look over it and check on all my work. So we have kind of an accountability group there. I would love for you to join that. You can go to andersondiscoveries.com and you'll see information there about how to sign up. And I know it's like $25 a month. That's a lot of money. It is, even with all the inflation that we're unfortunately living with. And if you just want to, send $5, you can do that there without becoming a monthly supporter. But for those that really believe in what I'm doing, then this is an opportunity for you to help me make sure I can do all this. Let's look at Yahweh's law. Yahweh's law says we need 2 witnesses. This is the law. Deuteronomy 19:15. A single witness may not testify against another person for any trespass or sin that he commits, which is a violation of Yahweh's law. A matter may be legally established only on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. Okay, well, that's interesting. And then Jesus said, it is written in your law that the testimony of 2 men is true. Okay, so Jesus understands the requirements, all right? Let's go back up here and read through some of this. So this, Deuteronomy 19:15, is Moses relaying Yahweh's words, Yahweh's law. This is why, if you want the best witness of all, you want Moses. No one knows the law like Moses. He got it from the horse's mouth and is relaying it to everybody else. If Jesus wants to claim he kept the law, he will need 2 witnesses. And it would be better if they were experts in the law. And you can't get a better expert than Moses. So Jesus then submits to Yahweh's law and knows he will require 2 witnesses. Why would Jesus submit to Yahweh's law? If, as we say, Yahweh is Satan the adversary. So why would Jesus submit to Satan? This is a question that comes up all the time, and we answer it right here. It's very simple. Because his primary goal is the fulfillment of Yahweh's law. He has no choice but to submit to Yahweh's law to free humanity, to execute the contract and free humanity. Let's look at this passage, though, a little closer, right? Jesus said, it is written in your law that the testimony of 2 men is true. Jesus says your law, not our law, not he and his father's law, nor my law, nor my father's law, but your law. That's a very, very key distinction. And sometimes words are inserted into the text to try to make sense of things. These words are in the text. I just thought I'd want to say that because I think some people might go, are those words your and law actually in the Greek text, or are they just added for clarification? No, they're in the text. Okay, it's very important. So Jesus isn't Yahweh. He hasn't come to fulfill his own law. He's come to fulfill your law. Okay? So he's come to fulfill someone else's law. And this, John 1:17, the law came from Yahweh through Moses, but favor, loving kindness, and truth came through Jesus, our Messiah. Now, what's also interesting about this is the very next passage, which may not seem to have a great connection to everything else we're talking about here today, but the very next passage, okay, this is John who wrote the gospel, saying, no one has ever seen God. So, okay, the law came from Yahweh through Moses. Okay, Moses saw Yahweh all the time. I have a study out there called Yahweh, the Physical God. We go through all of these times in the Old Testament when people met with Yahweh, fed Yahweh, washed Yahweh's feet, provided bread. Yahweh met in certain places like inside of tents, stood in the doorway of tents, stretched out under a tree in the shade and things like this. Yahweh is a physical, a biological person, just like the Father is, just like Jesus is. Christianity has told us lots of fairy tales, kind of a Disney-esque fantasy fiction about what God is really like. But Genesis 1:26 says, then the Elohim said, let us create man in our image, in our likeness. So we're not them, but we are very much like them, okay? And when we're born again at the resurrection, and we'll be a lot more like them, if not like them, we'll work out how all of that is at that time. So, see my study, Yahweh, the physical God, because it's important for you to see that so many people saw Yahweh. But here, John is explaining just after, he talks like immediately after, he talks about the law coming from Yahweh through Moses, but truth came through Jesus. And then he says, no one has ever seen God. Well, that's a direct conflict with what? If Yahweh was God, that would be a direct conflict with what was just said before. Yeah? All right. So we know that Jesus has come to fulfill the law. We need two witnesses, two people that knew Yahweh and his law exceptionally well. Who would be the best people for that job? Well, we already know because their names are in the title of the study, but let's dive into this. The two witnesses closest to Yahweh are Moses and Elijah, and the most we've got to talk about here is Yahweh. So let's look at this. Moses, a fellow murderer like Yahweh, was chosen by Yahweh to be his representative. Isn't that interesting? Yahweh, who's murdered so many millions and millions, almost an innumerable amount of people since the beginning, the lying murderer from the beginning, the Genesis. When he wanted a representative, he chose someone who also was a murderer. Okay? So Moses relayed the law from Yahweh and frequently hung out with Yahweh face to face as friends, making Moses the perfect witness of both Yahweh's actions and the law of Yahweh. All right? When Yahweh is done with Moses, he, as he does, murders Moses and buries him in an unmarked grave, forcing the kingdom to retrieve Moses' body. This is a serious deal. They want the witness. Why do you think the witness, the best witness you could ever have, was murdered by Yahweh's own hand and buried in an unmarked grave? So his body could never be found. Let's take a look at some of that, okay? Here is the murder of Moses. Then Moses ascended from the Rift Valley plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the summit of Pisgah. Yahweh showed him the whole land. Then Yahweh said to him, "This is the land I promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it, but you will not cross over there," which is another lie by Yahweh, another broken promise, right? Just like he promised this 2.5 million people that he took out of Egypt to go to this lush new land flowing with milk and honey. And I'm sure there were conversations about, well, how far away is this new place? And, it's about 3 weeks away for a large crowd. A single man could walk it in a week and a half, just walking during the day. And yet they remained in the desert for 40 years, right? So that's another broken promise. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, and because Bibles don't change these things, the Lord to Yahweh, I do, and I obviously didn't with that one. So Moses, the servant of Yahweh, died there in the land of Moab as Yahweh spoke. Yahweh buried him, but no one knows his exact burial place to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died, but his eye was not dull, nor had his vitality departed. It's interesting, you got to wonder what Yahweh's role is in Torah here. This is Deuteronomy 34. So this is part of the books of Moses, and most say, well, Moses wrote these, but he couldn't have written this because he was already dead, right? But it gets a little bit interesting, actually, because this is just after Moses gives a deathbed confession that Yahweh is not the Most High God. Now, you may be thinking, what? I've never heard that before. Let's look at this. So this is Deuteronomy 32, and see my study on the temptation for more on this. But this is what Moses says to the people right before he's about to be killed by Yahweh. Yahweh told Moses, I'm going to kill you. So Moses takes this opportunity and says some things that are in what is called the poem or the Song of Moses. This is what he said. Remember the ancient days. Bear in mind the years of past generations. Bear in mind. Think about them. Ask your father and he will inform you. In other words, it's not written down anywhere for you to see, although now it is. Someone obviously at some point wrote this down. Ask your father and he will inform you, your elders, and they will tell you. Tell you what? That when the Most High, the Elyon, when the Most High, which is Abba Father, gave the nations their inheritance when he divided up humankind, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the divine council. Yahweh's allotment is his people. Jacob is his special possession. Oh. You know, if Moses had not have placed this passage in the Bible, if he hadn't have said it and eventually it was, recorded, written down and so forth, we'd be at a great disadvantage. Moses here is speaking against Yahweh. Why wouldn't he? He knows Yahweh has already told him, it's the end of the line for you. We're going to go up a mountain and you will say goodbye. Okay? So he says this. Let's just read it once more. Remember the ancient days. Bear in mind the years of past generations. Ask your father and he will inform you. Your elders and they will tell you. Why do you think Yahweh got rid of all of these people right before they're about to enter the promised land? These very people Moses is saying that they should ask to tell them about previous generations. What happened? This happened when the Most High, Abba Father, gave the nations their inheritance. When he divided up humankind, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the divine council. Yahweh's allotment is his people. Jacob is his special possession. What's interesting is this comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is much older than anything we're translating from today. And now more and more modern translations are using the Dead Sea Scrolls to correct some of the latter changes that have been made. One of those changes is this here, where it says divine council. Because this was changed by the Jews themselves in their texts. And that's why you'll find in most Bibles, except for the most modern translations today, they will translate this according to the number of the children of Israel. What? Well, that's completely different context to the divine council. The Jews changed it. But thanks to the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have the original. And now in newer translations like the ESV, the NET, we are making these more accurate to the oldest possible translations or manuscripts rather that we have. So that's interesting. Then the kingdom retrieves Moses. Now, this is a phenomenal passage. This is from Jude verse 9. Michael, the archangel, was arguing with the devil, Yahweh. Now, I'm adding that in here. Okay, that's not in the text in Jude 9. I'm just adding it for clarification, and I'm telling you. Michael, the archangel, was arguing with the devil and debating with him concerning Moses' body. What? Why? Why? Okay, so let's picture this. Yahweh if we just look at this from a Christian perspective, Yahweh murders Moses. Or he doesn't murder Moses. He just I don't know, kills him. All these funny arguments. And now the archangel Michael's talking with the devil over the body. But Yahweh specifically hid the body. It was buried in an unmarked grave so nobody would be able to find it, right? And I'm not sure if I have it here. I haven't, but this passage here in Deuteronomy 34 goes on to say that, the body was hidden and nobody knows where it is to this day. All right, okay. But now we've got Michael the archangel arguing with the devil, debating with him concerning Moses' body. Michael did not dare to bring a slanderous judgment against the devil. Why? Against the devil? Who cares? It's the devil. So Michael said instead, may the Lord rebuke you, not himself. Why not? Why wouldn't Michael rebuke the devil? Why is the devil so special? If the devil was Yahweh, well, that makes perfect sense. He's the son of the king. Not the firstborn, but still the son, still a prince of the king. Now that makes sense. This all makes sense from this perspective. So, Yahweh hid the primary witness. And the archangel Michael came knocking, hey, we need the body of Moses, pal. No, you're not getting it. Oh, yeah, we are. We have to have it. He's the primary witness. We have something going on. We need a couple of witnesses. We're going to need the body of Moses. Someone needs to be resurrected. Someone needs to come back. Someone needs to testify. Starting to click together. I think this study will really click for a lot of people and start to make sense of some of the bigger picture of why Jesus came, what's really going on. Understanding this, and there's not a huge amount that needs to be understood, but it does need to be understood. You need to see what's going on here. Let's look now at Elijah. Elijah was the closest person to Yahweh after Moses. Elijah was removed from earth before he died, or before Yahweh could murder him. This is what it says in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 11. As they were walking along and talking, suddenly a fiery chariot pulled by fiery horses appeared. They went between Elijah and Elisha, and Elijah went up to heaven in a windstorm. Many people, and I agree, say, well, this sounds like he's been taken away in a UFO. I agree. That's exactly what has happened there. So there are our two witnesses. Now, what about during the mission? What about when Jesus was here? I mean, this gets really interesting. Elijah is John the Baptizer. So let's take a look at this. There's some controversy over this. Jesus and John are on a mission together. John prepares the way for Jesus. John 1:19 through 21. Now, this was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, John, who are you? He confessed. He did not deny, but confessed, I am not the Christ. All right? Now, would have been interesting being in John's shoes, all of these very serious people sent by the religious leaders. And they're like, are you the Messiah? Just imagine the temptation to say something. But he says, no, I am not the Christ. So they asked him, then who are you? Are you Elijah? He said, I am not. And so then they repeated the question basically and said, are you the prophet? And he answered, no. Now, wait a minute. You might be thinking, I thought you just said he was one of the witnesses. So what's going on here? Okay, but here's Jesus. Now, it's very important we look at who's asking John here. John was being asked by the Jewish leaders who sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him. Okay. Jesus, on the other hand, in Matthew 11:14 says, if you are willing to accept it, he, John, is Elijah who is to come. Then again, Matthew 17, he says, I tell you that Elijah has already come, yet they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they wanted. In the same way, the Son of Man will suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them about John the Baptist. I'm noticing the lag here in the video. I'm not sure what's going on. Hopefully the recording will be okay other than that. But what's going on here? Well, John was clearly not permitted to say to the Jewish leaders who he was, which would have been incredibly disruptive and would have immediately taken the attention away from Jesus and likely resulted in John's immediate stoning to death, because they would have said, you're blaspheming. Jesus, on the other hand, after John had been killed, was free to tell his disciples who John really was, and he did so twice. And in both of these instances here, we will see who is Jesus talking to. He's not talking to the crowds. He's talking to his disciples. So this would not have gotten out until after his death and resurrection. We can take the words of Jesus seriously. We can understand that there are things going on, and that's just all there is to it. And some people just want, to pick apart what John is saying there. Well, John denied it. Of course John denied it. He said, well, John lied. Okay, I'll let you wrestle with that. Moses and Elijah have a conversation with Jesus and sign off on the crucifixion of Jesus. This is where it gets interesting. So, John, obviously been resurrected and is now here with Moses. As he was praying, as Jesus was praying, the appearance of his face was transformed and his clothes became very bright, a brilliant white. Then two men, Moses and Elijah, began talking with him. They appeared in glorious splendor and spoke about his departure that he was about to carry out in Jerusalem. They're signing off on the crucifixion. You did it. Let's go to Jerusalem. Let's finish this up. Let's get this all resolved. We have fulfilled the law. This is a big deal. It's a really big deal. But we need our two witnesses, and so they did their job. Thank you very much. Moses and Elijah, who will be testifying against someone they knew really well. Still to come, right before the return of Jesus, the two witnesses will be in Jerusalem, where they will testify to the Jews. They have power to kill only in self-defense. So some people have like they're calling down fire. They're like, it's obviously Elijah. Is the witnesses calling down fire from heaven like Elijah did, and people are being killed, yes, but only in self-defense. They're allowed to kill people that are trying to kill them. That's it. They are eventually killed by the beast and lay dead in the streets for 3.5 days before being resurrected and removed. So these two guys are super important, and there's a lot going on here. And maybe in the future we will dive into this in greater detail, but I think we've done a pretty good job of having a bit of an overview here. Hopefully the audio and everything is all right here, because I can see this video is all over the place. Thank you very much to my Founders Club members. You guys are incredible. Please, if you believe in my work, I do need your support. Go to andersondiscoveries.com and find the section there on becoming a Founders Club member. I would truly appreciate that. And we'll be back with more soon. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please find someone you can share this with. I think this is a pretty unique study, so I'm sure that lots of people would like to see it. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.